A year or so ago, I came across my uncle's thesis when he was an economist at Stanford, and he coined the term information economy and wrote his dissertation on how the economy was shifting from an industrial economy to an information economy. And it was fascinating to go through his 9-volume dissertation and start to understand how the economy has evolved over time. I sort of always assumed the economy was more or less the way it is, but what I came to realize was that we started off as hunters and gatherers, and that's how we were able to survive. But then we learned how to use the land and animals and to settle down and created an agrarian economy. And this had lasted thousands of years. But then we turned into an industrial economy. We started learning how to make machines, and we started being able to create assembly lines. And it radically changed our whole economy, our society, et cetera. And that what happened in the 1960s is we actually had a shift where we went from this industrial economy, where the economy was about how we made things, was about manufacturing, into this information economy, which was about everything from TV and radio to technology to eventually the internet. And then it had become the dominant part of the economy. And what was interesting in looking at his research was not only that the economy had shifted, but each of these economies had gotten shorter and shorter. The agrarian economy was thousands of years. The industrial was just a few hundred. And it seemed likely that the information economy wouldn't last that long. I mean, it'd be much shorter than the industrial economy. And as I looked at what are the things that gave us an indication the economy was shifting to this information economy, I started to realize there were similar things that were happening today that may be signs that the economy is changing again, that we may be entering the fourth economy in our history. A fourth economy based on sort of advances in where we are as a society, what our needs are as a society. And I started looking around, trying to figure out what do all these different pieces add up to? And you started seeing books and articles showing up everywhere, people talking about sharing, people talking about maker economy and how people are making their own products, to people shopping and doing more around experience. All these different trends that were happening throughout society. And I started drawing all of these different trends on a whiteboard, showing where they existed and how they connected to each other. And when I took a step back, something emerged, which is they were all fundamentally about purpose and people's quest for purpose. They were about enhancing relationships. They were about doing something greater than yourself. And they're about personal growth and experience. And when you looked at them in totality, they started to really indicate that we were on the way to our fourth economy, that we are going to be, likely in the next 10 years, as millennials become the majority of our workforce, an economy where purpose is the primary driver of economic output. And we're already seeing that, and the top innovations coming out of finance, education, healthcare, retail, all the top innovation is all around this need for purpose. And as you look at the workplace, all the changes we're starting to make in the workplace, the things Google's doing, the things top companies are doing, they're all because, especially the millennial generation, is demanding purpose in their work at a level never seen before. And that's why I believe we're in the early days of our fourth economy, a purpose economy. So a lot of people ask, like, what is the purpose economy? And I think it's something that I'm honestly still continuing to define and to understand. In every city I visit, I find new examples. But there's some common threads that bring it together. I think one is community. I think with technology and with the Industrial Revolution and cars, we've gotten to a point where a lot of traditional communities have gotten pulled apart. And what we see a lot of innovation that's going into this new economy is about getting back to neighborhoods, getting back to local business, getting back to being able to relate to your neighbors and having schools truly embedded in your neighborhood. It's a much more localized economy. So that's one piece. The second really is a move away from consumption to creation and experience. So whereas previous generations were very focused on conspicuous consumption, consumption as a form of entertainment in of itself, we're seeing more and more, especially with millennials, a desire to be able to have experiences and to have like more conspicuous consumption of experience. And we're seeing more and more of a desire to create. And you see things like Etsy, or you see in like a lot of neighborhoods, new venues where you can go in and not just buy things, but make things. You get to build things yourself. You see more and more people do this in their homes. You see magazines and websites about do it yourself. The other major piece of it is disintermediation. We've gotten to a point where there are these huge organizations that make us so far removed from each other in marketplaces. And you see this with finance, where finance used to be about borrowing money from our neighbors. It became this like complicated algorithm as part of an anonymous business. And we're now starting to see peer-to-peer lending appear again. So we're removing that intermediary. You see in healthcare how we've had so many intermediaries get in the middle between the doctor and the patient. And if you talk to the top healthcare providers now, they're now moving towards goals of making sure that medicine looks more like it did 100 years ago, where house visits, where a doctor actually came to you, is the norm, not that you go see the doctor. It's removing these intermediaries in these institutions and bringing us closer together. So those are some of the trends that we see in this new economy.